Hey everyone, today we're going to make a vanilla wafer cake, and I found this recipe in one of my old church cookbooks and I thought it would be fun to sort of recreate it. And it was actually really easy to do. You basically are using vanilla wafer cookie crumbs for the flour. So you don't use any flour, you just use vanilla wafer cookies. It's really kind of an interesting recipe, but it came out really good and it's very, very moist as you can see here, and it's really easy to put together. All right, so let's get started. So first thing you want to do is take a large bundt pan and you want to grease and flour it. So I just used vegetable shortening and then make sure to coat it well with the flour. If you don't do this step, it's really going to stick because the cake is really moist. So make sure not to skip this step. And also you want to preheat your oven to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. So then you want to take an entire box of vanilla wafers. You can use generic or name brand, it really doesn't matter. But you do want to use the entire box of it. So I'm just using a food processor here because it makes it really easy. You want to crush up all of the vanilla wafers. So if you don't have a food processor, you can put it in a Ziploc bag, like a freezer bag, and then use a rolling pin or like the smooth side of a meat mallet, and then just make sure you're smashing them up really well. It needs to be kind of like a sand texture that you see here. So it needs to be really completely crushed up. And the next thing you want to do is you want to add 1 cup of unsalted butter to a large mixing bowl, and make sure that the butter is room temperature so it mixes better. Then add in 1 3/4 cup of granulated sugar, and you're going to mix this on medium high to high. You're going to whip it up probably for 2 or 3 minutes, just a couple minutes, until it's light and fluffy. So you'll see that the color also starts to lighten up, and then you'll know it's ready. So at this point, you're going to add in 6 large eggs. Make sure the eggs are near room temperature. If they're cold, it's going to really kind of clump up the butter. So make sure they're near room temperature. You're going to add these one at a time and then mix on medium after each egg. Just make sure that after each one, it's mixed up really well and it's smooth. Then add the next one. This part is pretty tedious because you're just adding them in one at a time, but it's to make sure that they really emulsify or really mix in well with the butter and the sugar. All right, so once you get that step done, then always scrape down the side and the bottom of the bowl. And I always try to get the bottom of the bowl. I think sometimes people forget that, but sometimes our mixers just don't really get all the way to the bottom, especially the stand mixers. Hand mixers, not so much, but my stand mixer, it just kind of leaves some stuff in the bottom. So always get that too. So just mix up again, just for a little bit here to make sure everything's well mixed. Then you're going to add a 1/2 cup of milk. Make sure that is close to room temperature as well. And then 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. So now you're going to mix this up again. Just make sure everything's mixed well. Then you're going to add the secret ingredient, not so secret ingredient, the vanilla wafer crumbs. Just add them in there and mix it all together. And I just mixed on medium here to start off with, so I didn't make a mess. And then I switched to medium high. Not super fast, but a little bit faster than medium. And I tried not to mix too long here. I don't really know if it's the same as making like a cake with flour in it, if you can overdevelop the gluten. I really don't know since you're using cookie crumbs instead, but you know, I just try not to mix too long here. All right, then you're gonna add 1 1/2 cups of shredded sweetened coconut and 1 cup of chopped nuts. So I used walnuts, but you could also use pecans. Then just take your spatula or your spoon or whatever you're using and mix that in by hand. Now you want to add that to your prepared pan, and it's a little thick, but just kind of get it in there as well as you can. And then when you get all of the batter in there, just make sure to kind of smooth around the top a little bit, just as best as you can. Then you're going to bake this at 325 degrees Fahrenheit for 1 hour to 1 hour and 10 minutes. So you may have to add on an extra 10 minutes from the 1 hour. Once it's baked, you're going to set it on a cooling rack to cool for about 20 minutes, and then you can flip it over and let it cool for another 10 to 20 minutes or so. You can see that one little spot got stuck to the pan even though I greased it really well, so I'm just going to kind of scrape it out here and then piece it back on the top. Nobody will know the difference. So another thing I like to do sometimes is I like to take a paper towel and then just kind of soak up any of the extra shortening. It can kind of make the top of the cake a little bit greasy, and so I try to soak in a little bit of that if I can. And so that's what I did here. And then for the topping, I just sprinkled a little bit of powdered sugar over the top, but you can do this. You can add Cool Whip. Some caramel sauce would be really good, or you can make some type of vanilla glaze. It's just up to you what you want to put on it. I thought it was fine just like this. I didn't think it needed another glaze to it, but whatever your preference is, I say go for it. So I hope you like this one. It was a really interesting and fun kind of cake. I've never made a cake like this and used cookies instead of flour, and it kind of gives me ideas for future recipes to try out. So let me know if you try this and what you think about it, and happy baking, and I will see you in the next video.